Hello and welcome back to Parc Fermé Parlay with Kieran Downey. We have just qualified under the lights in Saudi Arabia and we have a fair bit to get into because that was a qualifying if I've ever seen one. It was a bit spicy. But before we get into that, I just want to congratulate Arvid Lindblad, who won the F2 sprint race, becoming the youngest winner in Formula 2 history. He's part of the Red Bull Junior program and is a name that you will probably be hearing a lot more if you haven't already heard. He was quietly being talked up last year when he was doing F3 and Formula Regionals. Was he doing F3? He definitely did Formula Regionals, but he was being talked up quite a bit. He's now in F2 and again, with performances like this, will be a name that you hear quite a lot going forward. He is, by a lot of the sort of media around Formula One, tipped as a future Red Bull driver, almost the future Max Verstappen, if you will. So take from that what you will, but congratulations to the young lad on a fantastic sprint win. Now, qualifying. Oh my God, man. Qualifying in Saudi is nerve-wracking. I'm not even in the car. I'm not even at the racetrack. I'm sat at home in Scotland and even I was on the edge. Like, it racks my nerves and I'm not even doing it. Qualifying is probably one of my favourite times in a Formula One weekend, especially at tracks like Saudi where they are so on the edge, but they are so low fuel, high speed. It's fighting for as close to perfect as you can, because when it gets to the real crunch times of setting those laps, you muck it up, you probably won't be able to go again. It's not like, you know, when you make a mistake in the race and you can kind of claw it back. You make a mistake in qualifying, you're probably going to be out. Or in the likes of this qualifying, you make a mistake, you might be in the barrier. But we'll come on to that in a minute. We're going to start with Q1, and the drivers out were in P20, Gabriel Bortoleto, Esteban Ocon, Nico Hulkenberg, Jack Doohan, Lance Stroll in P16. With Gabriel Bortoleto, he just couldn't do it, could he? He just couldn't do it. He had a track limits violation in his first flying lap, so had his lap time deleted, and then when it really mattered on his second flying lap, he carried, I think, a little bit too much speed into turn one, hit the curb and spun out, and that was it. He had no time left. For a driver that was so promising coming into the season, I'm not really impressed by him, to be quite honest with you. He's not had a decent qualifying in the 5 races that we've had so far. Q1 exit for Bortoleto every single race, apart from Australia, the very first round of the season. So I know a lot of it is to do with the car, and I'm trying not to be too negative about him because I know he's a good driver. He's the F2 champion, and I know there's such a big difference between going from F2 to F1. I just kind of want a bit more. It'll be interesting to see if he has any moments throughout the season where we go, that's why you're in Formula One. So we'll see what happens with him. Esteban Ocon in P19. I think it's safe to say that only Gabriel Bortoleto spinning at turn 1 saved him from being last. Haas are on the back row again, well, at least one of their drivers are, and at least one of the Haas drivers has been on the back row 3 times this year, and on the second from back row twice this year. It's happening far too often that either Behrman or Ocon is sitting at the back of the pack. And with Oliver Behrman getting through to Q2, Esteban Ocon, there is no excuse for Esteban Ocon to have been out where he is. There really isn't. Because if your rookie can get through to Q2, there's no excuse for you not. If your rookie teammate can get through to Q2, there's no excuse for you to be out in Q1. I'm really sorry. I need them to start getting it together because it's happening too often now. The car is not a bad car. So what is going on that Ocon's in this situation? Or that they're in this situation, one of the drivers is in this situation being knocked out in Q1 every single week. Haas really are going to need to sort this out, because when it gets to later in the season and you know, the championship's really, really hotted up. You know, you've got such tight fight in the midfield. They want to be in that fight in the midfield. They don't want to be in a situation such as Williams or Sauber last year, where they're just so far away from it in terms of the points that they cannot get back. So Haas are really going to need to sort that out. In terms of Nico Hülkenberg and Jack Doohan being out 18th and 17th, they just didn't have the pace in them, to be quite honest with you. I didn't see any incidents or, you know, riding the curbs, clipping the barriers, anything that would have really slowed them down. I think they just didn't have pace. Lance Stroll being out in P16 means that he has broken a record. He has now overtaken Kevin Magnussen as the Formula One driver with the most Q1 exits in Formula One history. So well done, Lance Stroll. What's going on with Lance Stroll? Because I really just don't understand it. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. What's going on? Because are they doing the same thing to Stroll that they're doing to Alonso? Because with Alonso, they're just throwing everything at him. Like, every tyre possible. They know that car's not getting into Q3 yet. Depends on what happens with upgrades and stuff down the line. So they're going to throw every fresh tyre at it. Let's just get him into Q2 and we'll take it from there. Are they doing that with Lance Stroll? Are they? I don't know. I don't know, but he's just not there. It's just wild to me that he's the only driver I know that there's just such an acceptance of mediocrity. Any other team, he'd have been booted by now. He'd have been absolutely punted. Like, he would never have lasted in Red Bull or Ferrari. I don't think McLaren would keep him on. Like, I don't even think the likes of Alpine or Williams or anything would keep him on with his current performance. So I just don't get it. I understand he's the owner's son, but even if Newey builds a rocket ship, is that going to suddenly make Lance Stroll any better? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. There is a lot of talk about Max Verstappen potentially going to Aston Martin. If that is where he goes, if he leaves Red Bull, Aston Martin seems to be the one that is hotly tipped. Total Wolff has even said that he is very happy with George and Kimi. I imagine that when contract negotiations begin around about the summertime, Russell probably get extended and there's no way they're going to get rid of Kimi Antonelli. And everybody seems to be under the impression that if Max does actually leave Red Bull, which who knows, he will go to Aston Martin. Now, Fernando Alonso has said that he has a contract. He's not going anywhere, but his contract will take him through retirement. It'll take him through his retirement from actually racing and he'll become almost an ambassador for the team. So does Alonso take an ambassadorship at the end of this year, say, and Verstappen replaces Alonso? Or does Verstappen replace Daddy's little boy who just never gets out of Q1 and doesn't score any points? Like, I don't get it. And actually, he has actually scored more points than Alonso this season. But on the whole, when you look at the bigger picture, Stroll is just nowhere. So, very interesting. Very interesting. A new record broken in Formula One by Lance Stroll. So, well done. At least that's something. Moving on to Q2 and the drivers out were Oliver Bearman in P15, Isaac Hadjar P14, Fernando Alonso, Liam Lawson and Alex Albon in P11. Oliver Bearman just did not look happy or comfortable in that car at all. One bit, not a single bit of him. He complained that there was no grip on the car at all. He wasn't happy with how the rear tyres were prepped. And, you know, Saudi's quite a grippy track. So there's obviously some setup somewhere that isn't working right. He had loads and loads of understeer. He had quite a few snaps. He just wasn't hooking up clean laps at all. And actually, with Esteban Ocon being out in P19, a lot of that could be down to the fact that the Haas just has no straight line speed at all. Just no straight line speed. You're full throttle for about 70% of this track. So when they have no real speed, it's a bit of a concern at a track like this. Isaac Hadjar, I think, just didn't really have the pace. Alonso, as I mentioned, they threw absolutely everything at Alonso. Very similar to what they did last week in Bahrain, where in Q1 they threw every single fresh tyre at Alonso to get him into Q2 and then just let him drive to see where he went. Now, it's not entirely a bad plan if your plan is to just get through to Q2. The degradation on the tyres isn't as high, so running a used soft isn't a complete write-off in Saudi Arabia. You know, a used soft is still very usable around that track. So evidenced by the fact that he could get P13 all on used softs. If he'd managed to get through to Q3, he'd have been in trouble and been P10 probably, but that would never have happened because some of the other teams did have fresher tyres. So it is what it is for Alonso. It's a very interesting strategy to throw every used soft you have available at it and just go hell for leather to get through to Q2 and, you know, see what happens. But it's working for him, so we'll see. Hopefully he can score some points, but I doubt it, with overtaking being very hard in Saudi Arabia. Liam Lawson being out in P12, I actually thought at first it was because his lap time got deleted, but actually that was from his first flying lap in Q2. His second flying lap, he just really couldn't hook it up and said that he was really just giving it everything. I'm giving it my all. So the V-carbs being where they are, that kind of just leads me to believe that that is where that car is around this track. They are the 12th and 14th fastest cars. And it's not because of any issues on track or anything like that. It's just they don't have the pace around this particular circuit. So that's the V-car boys. And then Alex Albon. Alex Albon, I have to say just quickly for Q1, was actually quite scruffy. He clipped the wall twice in one lap, and actually I thought he was going to be out, but got through by the skin of his teeth. And then in Q2, when it came to the second round of flying laps, they just kind of played it all wrong. They sent him out really early for his flying run. Whilst the rest of the cars were in the pits, he had the track completely to himself. And it was that sort of risk versus reward. Like, we're going to go out, we're going to have a clean track, and it minimises the risk of us not being able to set a lap time because of a red flag, a safety car, a crash, something like that. However, you don't then get the benefit of the track evolution from, in terms of the temperature, it's getting cooler and cooler as the seconds go by. So the track temperatures are obviously going down, which means you're getting a little bit more grip. Also, when you're going out the same time as all the other drivers, there's more rubber getting put down on the track, which means you have more grip again. So he's not getting the benefit of the track evolution. It could have really worked for him to get just a clear run at it, get a solid lap time in, and then, you know, you might get through to Q3, but it worked the other way where he went far too early, didn't get the benefit of the track evolution, and was out in Q2. It was a gamble that Williams decided to take. It didn't pay off for them, and I imagine it probably will be a gamble that they won't likely take again. Moving on to Q3, the driver lineup is P10, Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda, Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz. In P5, it's Kimi Antonelli, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen on pole. Well, seeing as he's out in P10, it's only right that we talk about Lando Norris first. Kind of thought that we were going to get through qualifying with no big crash or red flags, and if there had been one, never did I think it was going to be Lando Norris. And here we are, Lando Norris crashing into barriers and taking him out of qualifying in P10. The only upside from this I can see is thankfully it happened in Q3, so he's not further down the path. The downside of this is he is P10 and he does still have to fight through a load of drivers on a track that is quite tricky to overtake on. Lando Norris was coming around turn 4 and was carrying just a bit too much pace coming out the corner, hit the throttle which carried him onto the curbs, skewed the rear of the car, and it was just enough to send him straight into the opposite wall. From the onboard, it looks to be a pretty gnarly crash, but from the overhead, it doesn't look like the damage is too much to the car. Now, he will start P10 as long as they do not have to fit a new gearbox or anything to that car, which would break Parc Fermé, which would be a pit lane start for Lando Norris. That is not what he needs. I have to say that this is absolutely massive, massive for Norris's championship momentum, or just for the championship momentum, because this was a weekend where he was actually the faster of the two McLarens. All weekend long, he has been the fastest McLaren. He was the fastest in all 3 practice sessions between the two drivers. He was the fastest out of the two drivers through Q1 and Q2. And right when it mattered at that Q3 moment, he crashed into the barriers. And when Lando crashed, Oscar had just set his lap time, and he was the only one to do that, but it wasn't his fastest lap time. He was actually quicker in Q2 than he was on his first run in Q3. So there was every possibility that Lando could have gotten that pole position, gotten that faster lap, because he was the faster of the two McLarens. And now it's just unfortunate that he is going to have to fight through so much traffic at a track where it is quite hard, where we're probably looking at a one-stop race. Coming into those second runs in qualifying, Lando had left the door completely open to allow Piastri or Max Verstappen, as it is now evidenced, to just completely walk in and take that pole position that should have been him, and in turn probably take away a race win from him. This is a race that's been won from pole position 3 out of the 4 times it's been held. We are also in a series where the past 4 races, 5 if you include the Chinese sprint race, have all been won from pole position. So there's every chance that Lando doesn't even have a look in. He might not even see the podium this weekend. We obviously heard the radio message between Lando and his engineer where, you know, they asked Lando if he was okay and he'd said yes, and he called himself an effing idiot. I feel so bad for him. I feel so bad for him because it will just be a bit of a knock to him and to his confidence. And it's put him on the back foot for tomorrow's race, in a race that you really don't want to be starting too far down the pack. This is a huge moment in the championship, and we're only 5 races in out of 24, and we won't understand the full ramifications of this incident until the checkered flag of tomorrow's race. But this could very well be an incident that we are still talking about way further down the line when the championship has been decided. So it'll be very interesting to see what Lando Norris can do tomorrow. All right, Pierre Gasly, P9, absolutely incredible, phenomenal, well done, big up the Gas man, and I'm thoroughly enjoying these Q3 appearances. Hopefully he can score some points tomorrow. Yuki Tsunoda being P8. I'm just glad that Yuki got through to Q3, and I think he's in a good spot to go and score some decent points tomorrow. I think that we will begin to see a bit of an evolution to Yuki pretty soon. I've heard that he is doing a private test at Silverstone so that he can really just get used to Red Bull machinery. And that should hopefully make the world of difference for Yuki Tsunoda. But not a bad performance to get a Red Bull that is a pretty tricky car to drive into Q3. And as I said, it sets him nicely to get some points tomorrow. Hamilton in P7. There's something going on with Lewis Hamilton, and I just don't know what it is. And the only thing I can think of is that they've just gone completely the wrong way in the setup of his car. There's just something that he's not clicking with, and I don't know what it is. But it has to be that they're just not setting the car up right. And he can, not that they're not setting it up right, but the way that they're setting that car up, he just can't get on board with. And he's really struggling out there. And I did not think that it would take him this long to adapt to driving the Ferrari machinery. And, you know, he sounded pretty positive, and like, take the sprint race out of it, because that is just like it almost feels like that was an anomaly, the Chinese sprint race, because we went straight into the race the next day, the qualifying later that day, and into the race, and he really struggled. But you would think that that wouldn't be the case, because, you know, you've just qualified on pole and won a sprint race, but here we are. So yeah, there's just something on that car that he's not vibing with. It does seem that their rear wing was set up for more straight line speed, and maybe that's just unsettling him in the corners. But I think it was through free practice 3, he'd asked his race engineer, you know, like, where am I down? And they'd come back and said, you know, in the first sector, you're 7/10ths down. In what world is Lewis Hamilton 7/10ths down? That's not normal. I don't know what it is that's really upsetting him in this car. But they need to find out what it is. They need to get to the bottom of this issue. And I understand it's a triple header, so it's a bit more difficult to get these kinks ironed out, because you're just constantly, you know, you're full race weekend and then it's straight to the next location and it's time zone changes and it's all these types of things. So I understand that, but they need to get this sorted out for him because this can't go on. He can't go on performing like this, especially when he's been out-qualified by Carlos Sainz in a Williams. In a Williams has out-qualified Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari. I know, isn't that mental? Well done, Carlos Sainz, for that. Carlos seems pretty happy in the car. He's radioed in throughout the weekend to say, you know, he's feeling quite happy, quite confident in the car. Things seem to be responding to him quite well, so very positive for Carlos Sainz there. Kimi Antonelli getting P5, just another good, solid result for Kimi Antonelli. And it's at times like this you can see where the preparation that Mercedes put into him is paying off, because they really worked him last year to get him prepped to be in Formula One car, to be part of the team this year. And they're really taking the time to care and nurture him. And he's got a good support system around him. He's got a very experienced teammate that can help him with any issues he's facing and, you know, sort of guide him in the right direction. He's got Valtteri Bottas right there to help impart his years and years and years of wisdom and knowledge and experience and help him get the most out of his time out on track. And it's working, because P5 around this circuit for your first time in F1 machinery is no laughing matter. And it's obviously part of that is he is driving, out of all the rookies, the best car, but it's still very, very impressive. We then have Charles Leclerc in P4, and kind of where I expected the Ferraris to be honest with you, because they were looking pretty quick. Leclerc seems to have gotten a bit more of a handle on it, and it does seem that that is where the Ferrari is at the moment. He came over the radio, I think it was in FP3, and had said that he is putting everything into it. He cannot get any more out of the car. So this has to be it, because at qualifying, when they're cranking the engines up and you are giving absolutely everything to it, he's setting P4, that is where that car lies. Hamilton's a different story. There's something else going on there, I'm telling you. But Leclerc is getting everything out of it. P4 is where that car is. You then have your top three with George Russell P3, Piastri P2 and Verstappen P1. I have to say all three of these drivers just came alive in those second runs in Q3. Russell is doing an incredible job. I can't say it enough how impressed I am with George Russell. His qualifyings have been so good this year. His races have been pretty good. I think we're on for another podium for George Russell. I'm telling you, he will be on the podium again. And I'm so impressed with him. He is definitely a championship contender in my eyes. Oscar Piastri, as I said, interesting one when Lando crashed, because he wasn't fast. Well, he was fast, but he wasn't his fastest. He was slower than his Q2 lap. It wasn't his best lap. And when he went through on his second run, Sector 2, which was sort of an area that nobody really was improving much on, he couldn't really get that one hooked up, but he still set a fairly decent time, got it ahead of George Russell, and I thought, okay, my prediction came true. Piastri on pole. And then, out of nowhere, the man that you can never count out, Max Verstappen, goes and does another absolutely beautiful lap and sticks his car on pole. I don't know why I ever doubt Max, because you just cannot count him out. You cannot count out Max Verstappen at all. And these drives show you why. These types of qualifyings show you why. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. The call from GP to do 2 push laps was incredible. Go and do a push lap on a set of scrubbed softs. Come in, we'll do a race-like pit stop for you. We'll fuel you for those 2 runs. Fueling you now for 6 laps. Go out there on those used scrubbed softs. Come in, we'll do a race pit stop, get a fresh pair of boots on you, and get you back out for a second lap. That was truly the best call that they could have made, and it worked so well in their favour to get that man onto pole. You can look at Verstappen through practice sessions and be like, oh, something's not quite right there. Oh, he's a bit off there. Oh, he's a bit slow there. Probably not going to be on pole. And then it comes to qualifying and he pulls out one of the best laps you've ever seen in your entire life and sticks it on pole. It's just Max Verstappen doing Max Verstappen things. And what a bloody incredible lap. What an insane lap. Now the big question is, what happens tomorrow. Because, as I said, every race this year has been won by the driver on pole. 3 out of the 4 races that have been held in Saudi Arabia have been won from pole. Does Max Verstappen win it from pole? Or does Piastri manage to get through and go on and win the race? Out with there being red flags, safety cars, anything like that, it's looking like a one-stop race. Now, what may play better into the McLaren's hands is just how much better the McLaren is on their tyres than the Red Bull. If we get nothing, no safety cars, no nothing like that, that will play a part into it. However, this is Saudi Arabia. We will definitely see a safety car. Chances we could get a red flag. So it is all to play for going into tomorrow's Grand Prix. But that is everything from us. Let us know your thoughts on qualifying in the comments down below. We'll be back tomorrow after the race. Have a lovely rest of your day. Love you. Bye.